Hello, this is Sonara,
And then
and we're reading the County Press for Friday, the 1st of...
there will be a coffee morning held in support of the Society on Tuesday 5th of December at the Post Office in Knighton. All are welcome between 10:30 until 12 noon. The Dolphins group will be meeting to swim on Tuesday the 5th of December at the Waterside Pool Ride. The pool is closed to the public during the session. If you would like to go swimming, please call the Society first to advise us of your level of swimming ability. Please note there are no lifeguards in attendance during the session. On Wednesday, the weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House this Wednesday, 6th of December. The coffee mornings are not just for blind and partially sighted people. Anybody can come along and have a cup of coffee or tea as well as a piece of cake. The Society Coffee Morning will be joined by the Macular Degeneration Group for their monthly meeting. The Owls will be meeting Wednesday the 6th of December at 2 p.m. at Millbrook House. There will be a talk by Carol Walker on the Galapagos Islands. The group lasts approximately 45 minutes, which is then followed by tea or coffee and cake. Thursday. The Knitters and Natterers are meeting on Thursday the 7th of December at Millbrook House. The group meets from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. You can knit or just natter. Then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics. Any other news? The Society will be exhibiting a Christmas tree in the Wilberforce Hall as part of the Bryston Christmas Tree Festival, to be held from the 7th to the 10th of December. All 7 venues are open daily from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. This year marks the 21st festival, with all proceeds going to support local and national charities. Further information can be found at www.bxtf.org. We will also be fundraising at the Brystone School Christmas Fair on the Saturday the 9th of December, 1 p.m. until 4 p.m. The Grand Christmas Raffle will be drawn at 11 a.m. on Thursday the 14th of December at Millbrook House. There is still time to buy your raffle tickets if you haven't already. Tickets are £1 each and prizes include a £100 cash prize, £50 Dress for Less voucher, Christmas hamper and many more. Tickets are available from Laura Jasper on 522205 or enquiries at iwsb.org.uk. The Short Story Writing Competition Award ceremony will be held on Monday the 18th of December 2017 from 7 p.m. at Newport Minster, St Thomas's Square, Newport. Doors open from 5:30 p.m. for refreshments, stalls, raffle and musical entertainment provided by Ricky J, Emily Scotcher and special guest Adana Minghella. For more information, visit www.iwsb.org.uk or call 522205.
And on to the scaffolding news. The following is a list of known addresses for works including scaffolding or hot boarding. We are unable to include end dates as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. Also included are tables and chairs permits that have been issued in the past week. In the Bay Area, there is currently scaffolding at 91A to 91B High Street, Ventnor, 70 High Street, Shanklin, Hambra House, Hambra Road in Ventnor, Kate's Cottage, 69 High Street, Sandown, the Happy Haddock, 87 High Street, Shanklin, 122 High Street, Sandown. New scaffolding is due up at Copper Kettle, 29 High Street, Shanklin, due on 8th of December. In the Cowes area, there is currently scaffolding at development site Castle Street, East Cowes, 20A Shooters Hill, Cowes. There are currently hoardings at 70 to 73 Arctic Road, Cowes, 99 High Street, Cowes. New scaffolding is due up at Flat 2, 10 Birmingham Road, Cowes, due up 4th of December. Red Squirrel Shop and Bella, 73 and 74 High Street, Cowes, due up on the 2nd of January 2018. In the Newport area, there is currently scaffolding at 38 Key Street, Newport, 18 Lugley Street, Newport, 33 Chapel Street, Newport, Savoy Court, Town Lane, Newport, scaffold on Pyle Street.
And at Fujifilm 79 St James's Street, Newport. New scaffolding is due up at Readers 33 South Street, Newport, which is due up on the 12th of February 2018. In the Ryde area, there is currently scaffolding at Oasis Dental Practice 9 Melville Street, Ryde, the Yar Bridge 99 New Road, Brading, opposite the Old Gallery Shop, High Street, Seaview, the Star Inn, High Street, Ryde, the Wrights and Earl Mountbatten Hospice Shop, 187 to 188 High Street, Ryde, Overbank, Upper Green Road, St Helens, and 8 John Street, Ryde. New scaffolding is due up at 69 High Street, Ryde. This is due up on the 4th of December. And the Castle Lodge, Dover Road, St Helens, due up on the 12th of January 2018. This week's In Touch. In Touch in this week's episode, hallucinations à lapse. When they lose their sight, many people start to suffer from visual hallucinations. These can be very distressing, and many people suffer in silence as they fear it is the onset of mental illness. Doctors are often unaware that hallucinations are common in sight loss, and the experience is called Charles Bonnet syndrome, named after the Swiss naturalist who first described the condition in 1760. Judith Potts has founded a new support group for Charles Bonnet syndrome sufferers. Esme's umbrella is named after Judith's mother and was suffered from CBS. Esme's umbrella offers help and support for sufferers and their families. Judith has successfully lobbied the Royal College of Ophthalmologists, who have agreed to inform their patients about the condition. Jackie Brown is the new chair of British Computer Association for the Blind, and she talks to Peter Wight about a range of free artificial intelligence, that's AIs, apps and their significance for blind people. This is entitled AI Apps. BBC Washington correspondent Gary O'Donoghue has been using the new Seeing AI app and is enthusiastic about its potential for VI people. Richard Pryor is a retired social worker who fears that VI people like him, who are not smartphone users, risk being left behind as YJR technology develops. The presenter is Peter Wight and the producer is Cheryl Gabriel.
And now on to the county press. And the headlines for December 1st, 2017 are, first of all, yet another supermarket, and secondly, forever friends. And the article, to go with yet another supermarket, plans for a new trade and retail park at St George's Park, Newport, with an Aldi or Lidl type supermarket, look set to be lodged in the spring. The company behind the development, South Coast Leisure, SCL, said it would create 300 jobs. SCL owns the site occupied by Newport Football Club, which is set to move to the racecourse next year, and an adjoining strip of land bought from the Isle of Wight Council for £380,000. When the council deal was agreed 2 years ago, it included options for non-food retail or light industrial uses. But last week the council agreed, subject to procedure, to vary those options to allow SCL to build 2 supermarkets, 18,800 and 11,000 square feet in size. When the news was revealed by the county press last Friday, readers questioned the need for 2 more supermarkets next to the recently opened Asda. Planning agent Paul Airy told the county press SCL has received interest from discount food retailers to be part of the scheme, and as a result approached the council to seek a variation of the agreement to allow for up to 2 small food units to be incorporated. SCL is now working towards submitting a detailed planning application in spring for a predominantly non-food trade and retail park incorporating a single discount food unit, an Aldi Lidl type, of around 8,500 square feet, about a quarter of the size of the new Asda. When trading, the development will create 300 new jobs. We understand there will be considerable interest in our plans, and we look forward to sharing more information as soon as we are able. Newport Business Association has spoken out against the plans due to the impact on independent shops, and Newport East Councillor Jeff Brodie, Labour, has also objected. And there's an additional bit under the heading, "Let's make Newport a better place to shop," plea. If the decision to vary is taken as planned by Finance Cabinet Member Councillor Stuart Hutchinson using delegated powers, Councillor Brodie said he planned to call it in. Providing he secured enough support, the decision would then go to the Scrutiny Committee. Newport Central Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, Independent, Isle of Wight Federation of Small Businesses Chair, Newport Business Association Vice Chair, and Newport Business Owner, said she had lost the battle over Asda, but maintained the town had a lot to offer. It will be big brands, and it's not going to do the town any favours, she said. We have to make it easier to shop in Newport and improve the experience. People want personal customer experience. They want somewhere with history and little alleys to explore. Retail parks are sterile, and I don't think people want that. And I have got a sample of what people say they want. My concern would be this would cause an awful lot more traffic going through Newport. Otherwise, nice to have more competition, from Sam Smith on the CP website. We don't need any more supermarkets. We need other things such as Primark, Dando's, Disney Shop, IKEA, River Island, Mango. That's why shops are closing down and hotels are being turned into flats, because there's not much here. From Layla Hancock on Facebook. How about using all the empty shops first, such as BHS, before building new ones? From Jim Middlemiss on Facebook.
And our second headline, Forever Friends, has a charming picture of a raven and a possibly a fox cub, sitting together by a log. So forget Disney's Fox and the Hound. An unlikely friendship between a fox and a raven is getting people talking on the island. Nathaniel Wheatley of Procam Films was filming Derek Sandy's new Christmas video at the Needles when he spotted the raven rubbing its beak across the fox's back. He said, "When I first saw them, the fox was lying down with the raven standing next to him, rubbing his beak on his back. Unfortunately, I missed that by the time I got the camera out. I actually couldn't believe what I was seeing. When I drove away, I watched the fox run off and the raven followed him into the bushes. It was very strange."
Butcher takes over Hamilton's shop. The former manager of Hamilton's Fine Foods factory has opened his own butcher shop in Cowes. Andy Brooke, 48, of Newport, managed Andy Gustar's factory in Dodner Lane for 3 years. After Andy's family recently sold the business following his death, Mr. Brooke decided to take over the empty cow store in the High Street. The butcher store opened yesterday, Thursday, and sells top quality Isle of Wight meat. Terry Twinbarrow, former manager of Hamilton's in Cowes, is working in a new shop alongside Jerry Henshaw, former manager of the Wootton Bridge branch. Mr. Brooks said, "When the factory closed, it seemed like a good opportunity to try to do my own thing. So I've put everything into it. It's exciting, but nerve-wracking too. It's great to have Terry and Jerry in the shop. People will remember their faces, and between the three of us, we know all there is to know, so we can help customers find what they were looking for." Meanwhile, the former Hamilton's Butchers in Wootton Bridge is also set to be transformed. Plans to turn the High Street shop into an Italian restaurant, similar to Prego in East Cowes, have been lodged with the Isle of Wight Council and were unanimously supported by Wootton Bridge Parish Council at its meeting last week.
Isle of Wight strategic plan to be updated. A new planning blueprint for the island is due to be adopted by the Isle of Wight Council by the end of 2019. The island planning strategy will replace the existing document, which has been in place since 2012. The new plan will be closely linked to the island's regeneration strategy and will give future clarity to residents, businesses, developers and investors. Councillor Barry Abraham, Cabinet Member for Planning, said, "We have agreed and set underway the timetable for a refreshed and revitalised island-wide strategy. Preparation work is taking place and we intend to begin consultation on the draft plan in June next year. It is a tight timetable, but we are determined to have in place a document which is relevant to the island's short and long-term future, balancing protection of our environment and landscapes with the island's regeneration and growth. More details and the full timetable can be found at www.iwight.com.
Girls' Big Day for raising more cash. Yarmouth's Wednesday girls, who meet on Thursdays, have raised another £1,000 for charity with their Christmas fair at the Community Hall of Yarmouth and District. The Friends have met each week since 2001 for a chat and have raised thousands of pounds for good causes while doing craft work. This year, people came to the hall to pick up knitwear, toys, Christmas decorations, aprons and books, as well as taking part in a raffle and enjoying refreshments. Sue Renwick, who hosts the meetings, said, "It was absolutely fantastic. Several stalls were virtually sold out. We were amazed, by how many came through the door to support us. There is always a community spirit about the event. All of us are interested in crafts in one way or another, and it keeps us out of mischief. Over the years, the group have raised more than £24,000. This year's money will benefit Break the Cycle, a charity which supports women who have been in abusive relationships and the community hall of Yarmouth and District.
Pool mystery. Medina's swimming pool was closed this week after all the water drained away. How the pool was emptied remains a mystery, prompting an investigation into what the Isle of Wight Council described as a plant failure. The pool had to be refilled and the water heated and treated before it could be reopened. The small pool was unaffected.
Meeting rocks bright sparks. The firefighters checking out a possible fire ended up bumping into Isle of Wight rock royalty. The incident on Sunday evening turned out to be a bonfire, manned by none other than Level 42 frontman Mark King and Best of All boss Rob DeBank. Mark said, "We were at a friend's place off the middle road, near Calbourne, with family and friends. Everyone was having the best time. Then these two men walked up in high-vis vests and torches to ask if everything was all right. It was the funniest thing. It was great to meet them. They were really nice guys." The firefighters snapped a photo and put it on Facebook. Crew manager Kev Garrett said, "What has been reported as a fire in the open turned out to be a bonfire, which was well supervised and under control. It was a nice surprise to meet Mark and Rob." He said anyone planning a bonfire could notify the fire service at bit.ly/bit2JUTUWI.
Shoebox appeal success. More than 2,300 boxes of children's gifts were donated to the Isle of Wight Rotary Shoebox Appeal. The gifts were added to the Wessex District collection, making a total of 26,964 boxes. This year, the boxes were sent to Moldova, Montenegro, Albania, Romania and the Philippines. Julie Hoskins, president of Ventnor Rotary, said, "The Isle of Wight Rotary Shoebox Appeal was another huge success, with schools and businesses collecting 2,315 boxes. Ventnor Rotary Club was the coordinator this year. We must extend a huge thank you to Reynolds and Reed, which lent us its warehouse free of charge for the duration, and Steve Porter Transport, which shipped them to Andover, our district collection hub, free of charge. On behalf of all Rotarians on the island, we thank all the schools who invited us along to talk to the children and who got behind the appeal, the parents, all the knitters who made wonderful hats, scarves, mittens and blankets, and all the non-Rotarians who turned up to help us process, pack and load the lorry, and last but not least, the dentists who donated the boxes of toothpaste."
Instrument appeal. Carisbrooke College is appealing for unwanted musical instruments. The college needs a range of instruments from flutes, violins, oboes and saxophones to guitars, bass guitars and drum kit pieces. For details, email Daniel Ansell at carisbrooke.isleofwight.sch.uk. Staff back flu jab campaign. More than 1,300 Isle of Wight NHS staff have been vaccinated against flu. The Trust's occupational health team, together with staff who have volunteered to become flu vaccinators,
have vaccinated more than 1,300 staff members since the beginning of October. A particular emphasis is on frontline healthcare workers who have direct contact with patients. Interim Chief Nurse and one of this year's flu vaccinators, Dr. Barbara Stuttle, said, "As healthcare professionals, it is part of our duty of care to our patients to protect them against infection, such as flu, which can be very serious. We know flu can kill, and we also know 70% of people with flu have no symptoms at all and could be spreading it to others who are vulnerable. So, as we approach the busiest time of the year for health services on the island, it is vital we protect ourselves and those we care for by getting a flu jab."
Art Society workshops. The St Lawrence Art Society holds workshops every second Friday from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. at Holy Trinity Church Hall, Ventnor, and welcomes new members of all abilities. Sessions cost £2.50, including light refreshments. Bring your own materials and projects to work on. Call Julie Stevens on 852112 for further details.
Shalfleet Parish Council has agreed to pay almost £450 to cut back an overhanging tree. The tree at Withyfields Conservation Area will be trimmed and tidied at the request of a resident.
Checks for council members. A campaign to shame councillors who have not had criminal record checks is to be launched by the Isle of Wight Council's Green Councillor. After losing a vote to insist all 48 members were Disclosure and Barring Service, DHS, checked, Councillor Michael Lilly said, "As elected members, we could have made an historic decision, and sadly the opportunity was lost. I will bring a motion back in the future, and in the meantime, residents of Ryde East, which I represent, know that I have a valid and current DBS certificate." At last month's meeting, Councillor Lilly highlighted the issue of councillors being part of corporate parenting when a child came into care due to neglect or abuse, but only those involved in decisions relating to children and vulnerable adults being checked. We sadly live in a world where it is becoming a less safe place for our children. We as councillors need to reassure the people we represent that we are safe, he said. Councillor Linney said it was a sad fact that there had in the past been locally elected representatives convicted of child abuse. That is why the DBS is important, he said. My certificate states, police records of convictions, cautions, reprimands and warnings, none recorded. I'm sure all my colleagues would have the same words. It is sad that we need to undertake this exercise, but it is our duty. Council leader, Councillor Dave Stewart, said the council was fuelling its legal obligation and would be acting legally if it insisted members were DBS checked. Councillors were automatically disbarred if they had a conviction, which resulted in 3 months or more in prison. He urged voluntary checking. If members want to, they can pay £25 and have their own DBS check, he said.
Indoor Riding School nearing completion by James Wolven. The Isle of Wight riding community will soon have a large indoor riding school as the Island Riding Centre expands. The business, which started only a year and a half ago, is growing steadily. It recently had floodlights installed and opened holiday accommodation, including specialised accommodation with disabled access, and provides the island's only wax fibre for professional quality area surface. arena surface. The new indoor centre will provide a 60 by 25 metre wax fibre arena, as well as a cafe and shops. Building started in November, and the centre is hoping to open the indoor school in February. The centre on Staplers Road near Newport runs dressage events every other Sunday, which attracts more than 70 people. Students age from 2 years old to people in their 70s who are getting back into riding. The centre is also affiliated with the Riding for the Disabled Association. "We want to provide for everyone," said owner Louise Buckner. "It is all really exciting. This was just a derelict farm when we bought it just over a year and a half ago. I can't wait for the indoor school to be up and running. It's great for the island to have something like this."
New hope for Floaty. Floating bridge could come back into service this month. Cowes Harbour Commission said the bridge's modified chain systems were being tested, and if things go well, the £3.2 million bridge could be back in action in December. A review into the design, build and delivery of the bridge will be made public in January. The bridge was taken out of service earlier in the year following a number of problems and breakdowns.
Failed ferry bosses in new airline crisis by Emily Pearce. The couple behind the Scoot Ferries debacle have launched an airline and asked for a £3 million bailout before a single plane has left the runway. Zoe Ombler and Nick Davies made 32 people redundant days before Christmas and left passengers out of pocket and stranded on the mainland when Scoot, which briefly ran services between Yarmouth and Lymington and Cowes and Portsmouth, collapsed 2 years ago. The couple, then living in Bars Hill, Cowes, have now set up Powdare to fly skiers from 6 UK airports to the Swiss Valais region. Less than 2 weeks before flights were due to start on December the 11th, however, Powdare said its key financial backer had walked away and community ownership was its only option. Describing the situation as potentially disastrous and appealing for donations, Chief Financial Officer Sean Pettit said the company needed $3 million to fly this winter and $1 million by today, Friday. The company said refunds would be given to more than 5,000 people who had booked flights if Powdare failed to take off. It is still taking online bookings. It said on Tuesday 134 potential investors had come forward, but warned, "Pledges do not represent a stake in Powdare. Failure of the airline in the next 5 years would mean loss of the funds with no realistic recovery." When asked by the CP about the similarities with Scoot Ferries, which went bust owing at least $120,000, Miss Ombler said, "I fail to see what on earth the failure of Scoot has to do with Powdare. I am head of commercial for an airline entirely unconnected with the Isle of Wight, and this is not even vaguely similar to what happened with Scoot." She declined to comment further. 2 companies, Powdare and Powdare Airlines, were registered in Ireland this year. Mr Davis, whose registered address is Lee View, Winchester, is listed as the director of both. At the time Scoot collapsed, Miss Ombler had 2 listed directorships on Companies House and Mr Davies had 11, most of which had been dissolved. Miss Ombler told the CP then, "Nick has other businesses because he is an entrepreneur. That's what they do. This idea we go around doing this sort of thing as a habit, it's not true."
Rail links with Isle of Wight towns could be restored. The old railway lines to Ventnor and Newport could be reopened as part of ambitious government plans to restore routes lost to the beaching cuts. Transport Secretary Chris Grayling said reinstating Services Act in the 1960s could create jobs and economic growth. He has agreed to work with Island MP Bob Seeley to look at extending Island Line services to Ventnor and Newport. Mr. Seeley, who has spoken to South Western Railway about extending services, welcomed the possibility of restoring routes, but warned it would not be easy. I am talking to transport and rail stakeholders about whether they would support extended Island Line. I believe there is potentially a strong case to extend the railway from Ryde to Newport to link the island's two biggest towns and ease traffic congestion, and to link Ryde with Ventnor, supporting Ventnor's regeneration. However, he said the Newport route would require greater integration with the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, and there were issues regarding routes to Ventnor. John Yunny of the Isle of Wight Bus and Rail Users Group welcomed the idea, but said it would be a huge undertaking. Newport was more of a possibility than Ventnor, he said, because the old station was so far from the town, which would be better served by improved bus services. It could happen, but I can't see trains running into Newport in the next 20 years, he said. There is a public meeting on train services at Shanklin Theatre on December 14th at 7 p.m.
Arthur's New Lease of Life After Theft by Megan Baines. A war hero who had his scooter stolen in Ryde has been given back his freedom and found a new friend along the way. Arthur Wade, 96, faced losing his independence after thieves stole the scooter from outside his George Street home. However, 89-year-old Edward Ted Busbridge came to the rescue, and the pair have since become friends. Ted said, "I saw the story in the paper last week and I thought, I can't just let this pass me by." Ted had 3 scooters, one for driving along the road, another for travelling on buses, and a third which he donated to Arthur. When Arthur was picking up the scooter from Ted's home on Newport Street, Ventnor, the pair realised how much they had in common and spent an hour chatting over a cup of tea. "We realised we used to go to each other's churches when we were younger," said Ted. The pair were also able to reminisce about the war. "It was great to be able to talk to someone about what we went through. I'm looking forward to seeing him again," added Ted. Arthur's daughter, Linda Hodgson, said she'd been inundated with offers to help replace the scooter. She said Alan Jones of Sandown, who runs a scooter hire business, offered to help. Ian Dorr, an ex-squaddie, offered to arrange functions to raise funds to buy a new one. Faye Williams offered a scooter which belonged to her late father, and Jade Light, an Islander, offered to set up a fundraising page. Darren Street, who started the online fundraisers, said, "I thought that if that was my grandfather, I'd like to do something to help." The appeal raised £180, which will be used to buy new batteries and replace the waterproof cover. Linda said, "My father is so overwhelmed seeing how much everyone cares, and the whole family would like to thank all the lovely people, particularly the police officers Fiona Hislop and Zoe King, who put themselves out to help after such a despicable act." However, it is Arthur's new friendship that has cheered him up the most. He's also just so happy that he has met Ted. It's given him a new lease of life, said Linda.
I can walk 5,000 miles. A freshwater woman is celebrating, having completed an epic walking challenge, 5,000 miles in 1 year. Natalie Thomas, 28, first took up the challenge after she lost her father, who was a keen charity fundraiser. She decided to walk 5,000 miles in a year, but completed the challenge in just over 11 months. She took the final step of the challenge on the Needles headland. She completed Walk the Wight challenge, the Wight, and managed to walk a complete loop around the island in 23 hours. She got through 5 pairs of trainers and 2 pairs of boots during the challenge. Natalie said, "It has been one amazing year. I learned that anything is possible. Dreams can become a reality if you work for them." Natalie started the challenge raising funds for 2 charities, Railway Children and Lions Club, and added cancer research halfway through after her aunt died of cancer in June. People can donate to Natalie's collection at www.gofundme.miles-365-days. The 365 is in numbers.
Marine Park Plan unveiled by Megan Baines. Plans to transform land at East Cowes into a marine business park with offices and research and development areas have been unveiled. The Homes and Communities Agency, which owns the land, has lodged a planning application with the Isle of Wight Council to redevelop Kingston Marine Park. The plans follow approval of Red Funnel's application to build a new multi-million-pound terminal and marshalling yard, which will displace marine businesses at Venture Quays. The council has said those businesses would be relocated to Kingston, which it hopes will become a new shipbuilding hub for the island. The site next to the Hawthorne Meadows estate off Saunders Way is currently just an area of cleared land. If the plans are approved, it would be transformed into a marine business park comprising office, research and development areas, and areas for industrial storage and distribution. The site will also feature a 200-tonne hoist dock, jetty and waiting pontoon. The application states, implementation of these proposals will allow the site to be brought into beneficial employment use, continuing a long tradition of marine employment activity along the River Medina and creating and sustaining local employment. Residents can view and comment on the plans on the Isle of Wight Council website. Councillor Wayne Whittle, Cabinet Member for Regeneration and Business Development, said, "The Kingston site could play an important role in our wider regeneration plans for the island, providing a hub for marine businesses with much needed deep water access."
Calling card left at scene of crime. If you're running away from the police, it's probably best not to drop your bank debit card at the scene of the crime. But that's what happened on Tuesday night, following a police car chase in Ryde. Officers had tried to stop a red Suzuki Alto car in Brading Road. As they suspected, it was uninsured. They gave chase when the vehicle made off at around 7:30 p.m. and a short time later found the car abandoned close to a footpath at the bottom of Slade Road. No arrests have yet been made, but one of the occupants left a valuable clue, his bank debit card. Police tweeted later, "To the occupants that dumped the car and ran off, one of you dropped your debit card. If you'd like the card and the vehicle back, come and see me at Newport Police Station." And the actual message was obviously put up on Facebook or Twitter. "Pursuit this evening in Ryde, Isle of Wight. To the occupants that dumped your car and ran off, that dumped the car and ran off. One of you dropped your debit card. If you'd like the card and the vehicle back, come and see me at Newport Police Station." And it gives a number, but the comment made on it is priceless.
And that's all for today.
So goodbye from Sonara.
And goodbye from Den.
And now, a change of voices from me, Peter Boffin, and
me, Pauline Hunter.
And here are some letters. Ryde School planning appeal from Dave Perkis of Ryde, who says, "Goodbye badgers, goodbye red squirrels, goodbye playing fields for boys and for girls. Goodbye trees and foxes' lair, goodbye bats and clean fresh air. Goodbye quiet, goodbye views, goodbye many things we all shall lose. Hello monster, 3 stories high, goodbye sun, blocked out of the sky. Hello eyesore, so out of place, goodbye habitat gone without trace. Ryde School tries again to get this thing through with complete disregard for me and for you. Contempt for our townsfolk, our town council too. Contempt for their neighbours, and to hell with their views. Just ruthless pursuit of financial gain, no matter the consequence, no matter the pain." Well, I hope you know that.
This letter is entitled Brexit Concerns, and it's from Glenn Copperney, Islanders for Europe, based in Ryde. As a member of Islanders for Europe, I am writing to express my concern over the Brexit process and how it will affect the Isle of Wight. Having written to MP Bob Seeley, I was disappointed to receive no reply, just an automated message directing me to a website. Our concerns include how the many homes for the elderly will find sufficient staff, how the farming community will cope with losing subsidies, and how farms dependent on workers from other countries will find enough people, and how, leaving the EU, the customs union and the common market will affect local industries. There seem to be so many issues and so little information. I also worry about the large number of people whose views are being deliberately ignored. We recognise a large number of people on the island voted leave, and we respect their reasons and concerns, but that seems no reason to ignore the views of the thousands of people who also have genuine concerns. There seems to be a trend in our communities towards pretending to listen to people while at the same time ignoring them. We are also concerned about the NHS, the loss of farms and green spaces to housing developments, rising food prices and care of the vulnerable. Islanders for Europe meet once a month at the Key Arts and has a website where people can find links to become involved.
And here's a letter from Ian Mackay of Totland Bay, who says, "Plans for a green Sprexit, supported by Bob Seeley MP, cause some howls of derision, predominantly from the left, but by doing so they are displaying their ignorance. Taking into consideration that the EU's linking directive allowed for was known as flexible mechanisms, that's carbon credits, created via climate action in non-EU countries such as India, China, Russia and Ukraine. The problem was loopholes within the system allowed for a mass manufacture of ozone-depleting refrigeration gases known as CFCs to capture a byproduct known as HFC-23, which generated carbon credits. The Environmental Investigation Agency estimated 2 billion tonnes of CFCs were generated in this manner, and also produced a report that in Russia and Ukraine, criminal gangs were behind the fake generation of credits, which produced an excess 600 million tonnes of carbon dioxide, according to the Stockholm Environment Institute. Cooking of the books in this way and using bogus and harmful carbon credits across the EU resulted last week in the announcement from Brussels that only 7 member states had advanced plans for an integrated climate and energy plan. And yes, the UK was one of them, thus dispelling the myth it is the EU leading the charge on climate. The UK has proved itself under the Conservatives and the Lib Dems to be far more advanced than the laggard states. The UK had also been persistently arguing for what are known as nationally appropriate mitigation actions, as the structures of the EU have been too rigid for countries to go their own way and make a greater contribution to combating climate change. Brexit allows us to follow this path. Perhaps the critics of Gov's plan should get to grips with EU climate policy before sounding off. Oh, I wonder what this smells.
This is a letter from David Atkin of East Cowes, and the heading is Tunnel Link. In reply to the letter from Angela Hewitt regarding Cathy Folkes' proposal for a cross-Solent tunnel. Firstly, I am against a fixed link which would give unlimited road access to the island, because I feel our present road system would be totally inadequate to cope with the resultant extra traffic. Also, we would be ankle deep in empty beer cans after every bank holiday, not to mention the inevitable increase in crime figures, etc. We all know the arguments well enough, such as, we live on an island, if you don't like it, get off, without me wittering on. I would, however, probably be in favour of a scheme on the lines Cathy Folkes has proposed, which would give us an all-weather public transport access to the island 24/7 without swamping our already overcrowded roads. The chances are this scheme, along with all the other fixed link proposals, will never get off the ground because of costs. But for Angela Hewitt to be as sarcastic as she was in her letter is hardly going to further the debate in any meaningful way. Is this the same Angela Hewitt who, as councillor for Whippingham, had two perfectly good bus laybys removed at huge cost to the taxpayer, resulting in traffic hold-ups now where before there were none? If she is indeed this person, then why should we listen to someone whose judgment is so flawed anyway? No doubt the fixed link debate will be with us for many years to come, but unless we can unlock huge sums of money, any debate becomes academic. By all means, have the debate, but let's keep it above the silly schoolboy level, please.
And Mike Ripley of Ryde says, I'm writing in reference to the article Fears for the Future of Landmark Tree, and in particular Councillor Love's comments. Councillor Love states, there is no sign to me of it dying, and there is no sign of rot within it either. In my opinion, all it needs is a good clipping. While I'm sure these comments are based on the councillor's extensive arboricultural knowledge and experience, it would appear that two qualified arboriculturists have recognised the degrading fungal brackets of a species that causes significant decay and thus significant structural weakness. Indeed, I myself, as an arboriculturist employed by a local authority, have recognised the significance of the fungus pictured in your article. Councillor Love should recognise that councils do not wish to fell trees unnecessarily. That is why they employ experts, that's the arboriculturists, to access actual risk. Indeed, much of many local authorities' time is spent preventing trees from being felled. Further to this, it won't be for Councillor Love facing legal action in the event of a tree failure, causing injury or damage. Perhaps this is why he can afford his expert views.
This is a letter from Councillor Michael Lilly of Ryde, and the heading is Criminal Record Checks. Regarding coverage of the criminal record checks, also known as DBS, motion, I proposed at the full Isle of Wight Council meeting on November the 15th. This motion was sadly defeated. I wish to correct any misunderstanding that I proposed anything illegal. It is my understanding my motion was not asking the council to do anything not within its powers. All criminal records check applications are voluntary, as all applicants have to agree to them. Usually it is a condition imposed by an employer. The potential employee has to voluntarily agree to the checks to get the job. The compulsion is the condition of the job, not the process of applying for a criminal records check. In relation to elected members, it is more the issue of enforcement. The council does not employ members as they are elected. The council has no legal enforcement powers to stop members not wishing to undertake a criminal records check. My wording in the resolution used the words, in quotes, must, not in the way of enforcement, but from a moral and ethical perspective. I felt the wording of voluntary undertaking checks did not give a strong enough message. As stated by officers in legal advice given to members, that if the motion was supported, members could submit criminal record check applications. I was focusing on the issue of corporate parenting, and that at corporate parenting events, we as elected members could be in contact with vulnerable children, and therefore DBS criminal record checks were appropriate. I felt it was important to make the public aware of this discrepancy. In no way did I want to shame my colleagues, and I acknowledge many, like myself, have DBS certificates due to being active in the community on other bodies, such as being a school governor or a trustee of a charity. DBS motions have been passed and systems put in place by other councils, including Cornwall County Council, Ashfield District Council, Birmingham City Council, Leicestershire County Council, among others. I am asking that if other councils can agree a DBS motion, why cannot the Isle of Wight Council?
And here's a little short letter from Linda Scares of Knighton, who says, "Are the Clinical Commissioning Group able to commission anything? They seem only able to do decommission things, the cancer bus, GP practices, facilities at the hospital, etc., which of course means that they are at least able to commission themselves offices and officers and the help of KPMG to tell them how to waste more of their National Health Service funds. P.S. Are they a quango or are they answerable to someone?"
This letter is from Alec Penstone of Shanklin, and the heading is Wartime Icon. So very pleased to see plans are afoot to honour Mary Ellis. I thank the RBL for responding to my suggestion to invite her to Armed Forces Day. Perhaps our Lord Lieutenant Major General Martin Wight can have a word in someone's ear the next time he goes to Buckingham Palace to elevate her to Dame Mary Ellis, alongside our other icon of the Second World War, Dame Vera Lynn. They are two wonderful ladies who, with many others, deserve to be remembered in our country's history.
Right. And now we're looking back in time. So if you can remember, if you're getting on a bit, you may remember this happened 100 years ago. On December the 1st, 1917, a food economy campaign was launched in centres across the Isle of Wight. The aim was to reduce food waste to enable more to be sent abroad to soldiers fighting in the war. It was debated whether compulsory rationing or voluntary action would be the best way forward. And a missing soldier was found safely. Private Ely of Ryde went missing in France after he went over the top when he was employed as a sniper. After being shot, he was sent to hospital in Southampton and was reunited with his family. Although his recovery was slow, Private Ely insisted he would be ready to return to battle soon.
And 75 years ago, on December the 5th, 1942, several island families received bad news about their loved ones fighting in the war. Private Walter Sutton of Newport was wounded and suffering from shell shock, while his brother was taken to hospital with a disease caused by trench fever and shell shock. Alfred Dyer of St Helens received the news of his son, Arthur, who had been killed in action on the Palestinian front, aged just 22. Another victim was Private Frederick Milligan, a postman from Ventnor, who was killed in action in France, leaving a widow and a child. In happier news, Sergeant C. Shirley of Newport won the Military Medal for Gallantry at just 22 for his service on the front line.
And 50 years ago, December the 9th, 1967, the Isle of Wight was selected for a nursing pilot scheme which hoped to improve services at St Mary's Hospital, was set to break away from working as individual units, instead working as one large group, a plan which would take more than 2 years to achieve. And a £25,000 order was exported from a Sandown firm, the largest to leave the factory. The shipment of Holland comprised 140 air conditioners. Temperatures, Vectis Limited, hoped this would be the first of many big exports.
25 years ago, December the 4th, 1992, an Ireland mother spoke of her horror after escaping death by seconds after a wall collapsed in her East Cowes home. A split second before, Shirley Rudall had been standing in the spot where the wall fell, flattening everything beneath it. Shirley was thankful an argument with her son meant she had moved when the wall fell. A Wootton couple told the CP about their 2-year battle with a builder that had turned their dream home into a nightmare. The £175,000 waterside property was left virtually worthless after cracks in the brickwork and badly laid floor left serious structural damage. The couple were left £1,800 out of pocket and facing a stalemate with the builder, who refused to carry out the work as they suggested.
And 10 years ago, November the 20th in 2007, a Ryde businesswoman claimed she was robbed by the Isle of Wight Council after being given a £30 parking ticket. Leslie Evans complained that she left the parking space at 8:35 a.m. and returned at 10 a.m, which was permissible under the regulations. However, the council claimed her wheel valves had not moved, and this was proof she had not moved. Leslie refused to pay, insisting she would take the council to court over the matter. An Aberfield society axed plans for a 48-bed nursing home on the outskirts of Ryde. Members of Nettleston and Seaview Parish Council said they were disappointed the home would not be built after they'd reached a compromise with the company over the plans. The Abbeyfield had failed to win Department of Health funding, and rising costs forced it to cancel the plan. So, that's it. And so much for looking back. Now it's time for Wight Memories.
And this article is called Through the Camera's Lens. The changing face of the island is documented through pictures in a new book, which also includes some fascinating behind-the-scenes stories. It was the bad old days of the 1960s, and gems such as Steep Hill Castle at Ventnor, which today would be preserved, were falling victim to the wrecking ball. But all was not quite as it seemed when the demolition crew moved in June 1963. Men, clearing the heavy undergrowth in preparation for construction of 29 houses, found no trace of Christ's thorn, said to have been brought from the east as a direct descendant of Christ's crown of thorns. But they did find the original craftsmen who built the fairy tale castle had cut corners. The inverted commas oak staircase was in fact pine, which had been stained and grained to appear more expensive. The handsome carved wooden ceiling beams were in fact plaster mouldings. The demise of the Steep Hill is one of the many fascinating tales and photographs in Alan Stroud's new book, An Island Camera and a Life on the Buses. The photographs were taken by Reg Davis, who spent a lifetime working for Southern Vectis, collected together by the author for the book, which has just been published.
Mm-hmm. And here's something from Charlotte. Is Boaty Brexit face a laugh now? Was it really only 18 months ago that we all had a giggle at Boaty Boatface? Some scientists held a public vote on the name of their new vessel, and a load of internet users piled in and voted for the silliest name they could, which duly won, albeit for the tiny support vessel. At the time I thought it was pretty funny, those white-coated eggheads getting a bit of a ribbing, but now I'm not so sure. The joke's gone stale. The pranksters have moved on, and we're stuck with a stupidly named boat, as if sitting in the airport lounge already regretting that holiday tattoo. I think Boaty was a message, and a serious one that was about more than boats. The harsh warning was this: democracy is broken and popular votes can leave you worse off. It's a very hard thing to consider. Our society is based on the concept that Churchill famously mentioned: democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. But what if those dictators and autarchs were right and we were wrong? There would be an awful lot of films and books needing a new ending. But the real-life implications are even starker. In the past few decades, we have spent huge sums and lost many lives attempting to bring our own form of democracy to various parts of the world, which even in the most favourable light can't be said to have taken it particularly well. Maybe now we are finding out why not. The boat-faced prank was harmless, but there have been votes since which were less so. I don't want to go ahead of events, but does anyone really think Donald Trump was elected without any help from a bunch of disruptive internet users in the pay of the Russians? There are still a few people in America who believe otherwise, but I'm pretty confident that particular exercise of democracy was not what it appeared to be. It's comforting to look across the Atlantic and scoff, but Boaty has a lesson for us in the UK as well. We now hear that the Brexit vote too could have been influenced by Russian spam boats spewing lies to influence our votes. Maybe so, but I think the British enthusiasm for taking the mickey had also got a lot to answer for. One young Ireland chap remarked to me that he'd voted for Brexit, but had come to regret it. I thought it would be a laugh, was his slightly plaintive confession. I voted to leave because I wanted to see what would happen. Well, surely this is the voice of one who also voted for Boaty McBoatface, giggled and moved on. Well, sir, there's no moving on from this one yet. Now you know what will happen. Chaos. We might be better off in the end, or we might not. But nobody knows for sure, and we can all see a lot of difficulty before we get there. We should have stopped with Boaty. That's from Matthew Chatfield.
This is a column in the My View section by Jake Harrison, and the heading is, I wish it could be Christmas every day. Oh yes, it's the start of December, and for most of us the Christmas countdown has now begun. However, for those of us who work in retail, Christmas actually started way back in September. Or was it January? Either way, retail at this time of year is ruthless. So forget the out-of-date mince pies. Here are 5, in my opinion, of the ups and downs and struggles of working in retail around this time of year. Apparently, it's the most wonderful time. That is, unless you work in retail, in which case it is a gruelling month of carnage, customers and Christmas puddings, and a time of year when most of the island's angry mob will descend upon their nearest town in desperate search of everything, from bright woolly jumpers to pretentious and pricey presents. But what about those of us in retail? Oh boy, do we take a battering. Number 1, the extra long hours, 50 or 60 hours a week. When I worked in a supermarket, I usually worked from 3 a.m. to noon, most days, coming back at 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. I would finish at 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve and would be straight back in by 9 a.m. on Boxing Day. I would work every day solidly during the festive period, living off a diet that consisted of Red Bull, coffee and jelly beans. Number 2, the crabby customers. possibly the most annoying thing about retail. It's truly astonishing the amount of people who complain about not being able to buy Brussels sprouts at 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Well, I'm sorry, madam, but failure to prepare is preparing to fail, so it's your fault. You've left it too late. I'm sorry, but please go away. It's even more bizarre to see the same people lining up outside the 10 a.m. on Boxing Day. The mind boggles. Number 3, those jolly jumpers. The cringeworthy Christmas jumpers that really are a silent cry for ho-ho help. It's a case of the good, the bad and the downright awful. Number 4, the continuous Christmas music. Oh no, the repetitive music that grinds up your brain all day long. Trust me, you'll hear it in your sleep and wake up wishing it really could be Christmas. Number 5, being forced to act normal and smile all day long. Don't let your line manager see you looking so glum. Remember, you're at work and you're supposed to be representing the company. On the outside, you'll appear polite and friendly, but on the inside, you'll be constantly seething. So there we have it. I hope you all enjoy your Christmas holidays, everybody.
And here's something from Behind the News by the historical author Hugh Sebag Montefiore, who highlights the torment of a nurse who dealt with the victims of the Battle of the Somme. By the time Sister Edith Appleton retired to the Isle of Wight, she had learned a sobering lesson from her time as a nurse in France during the Battle of the Somme. While it takes just seconds to shoot a man, caring for him afterwards can last a lifetime. It took 3 days for the first of the men wounded on July the 1st, 1916, that terrible first day of the Battle of the Somme, when the British Army sustained more than 57,000 casualties, to reach General Hospital No. 1 in Etretat, which is 12 miles north of Le Havre, where Edith Appleton was working. On July the 4th, her hospital took more than 1,000 of the wounded soldiers. Many were in a shocking state. According to her diary, some were crawling with maggots, while others were stinking with gangrene. One boy had both eyes shot through, and there they were, all smashed and mixed up with the eyelashes. And he said, "Shall I need an operation? I can't see anything." Poor boy, he never will. But that day was just the beginning. On July the 8th, Edith Appleton wrote, "The surgeons are amputating limbs and boring through skulls at the rate of 30 a day, and not a day passes without death taking his toll." No sooner had the hospital doctors stabilised their patients so they could be sent home, then another trainload of wounded arrived without warning. The first thing they asked for was a drink, but nurses had to learn only to give it in moderation. Some drink deep, then vomit it anywhere, then plead for more water, Edith Appleton reported. Not that vomiting was so terrible compared with some of the things inside they had to deal with. And on July the 10th, her audit of the wounded under her care included one with his brain out, another his intestines, and a third wounded all over and wildly off his head. When writing about one fatally wounded soldier, Edith Appleton concluded her account by writing, "The smell was so very terrible, I had to move him away from everyone. Happily, I don't think he could smell it himself." As if the physical injuries were not enough, Edith Appleton's diary discloses the nurses also had to contend with shell-shocked soldiers. They dither like palsied old men and talk all the time about their mates who were blown to bits, or their mates who were wounded and never brought in. One man told her he saw men with their arms blown off and how he stumbled over an object in the trench only to discover it was a dying or dead man covered in mud. One patient features in her diary more than any other. James was a 24-year-old private in the British Royal Irish Rifles. Doubly doubtful, fighting for Sorel in the northern German trenches front on July the 1st, an end of the source of shrapnel had bullet lodged in his diaphragm, and that condemned him to an agonising death. At first, the soldier, Edith Appleton, referred to her as her poor little chest boy, had a painful internal abscess. And on July the 16th and the 17th, his temperature shot up to 104, as the iron or lead bullet or shrapnel poisoned him. That prompted Edith to wish him away, well away, where he will only know about happy things. For one glorious day he appeared to be getting a shade better. His temperature dropped on July the 17th, but, as Edith recorded in her diary on July the 21st, he does not look right, and has such a quick pulse. I think he will die quite soon. No shut luck. He was doomed not to escape so easily, and more than 2 weeks after she wrote, wishing he could pass away, she was called upon to write to his fiancée and his mother, who had written to Edith asking whether he could write to her. There was no question of him doing the writing for himself. He was so weak, it was even hard for him to turn his head. I wanted him to tell me his own words, Edith recalled when she wrote up that her diary entry for August the 8th. But all he said was, "I don't know what there is you could say." I knew his mother was his greatest anxiety, and so wrote, "I am no stronger at all, but I have tried my hardest to take all my food and medicine and to get well." He said, "Yes, say I wanted her to know just that." Edith finished her note about him in her diary with the words, "I don't think he'll be detained longer than this week, and hope not for his sake." But he confounded all her expectations, and it was only on August the 23rd he died, prompting Edith to write in her diary, "Never have I seen such a slow, painful death. It was as if the boy was chained to earth for punishment. Towards the end it was agony for him to draw his little gasping breaths, and I felt I must clasp my hand over his nose and mouth and quench the flickering flame. I am very glad for the boy to be away." And the paperback edition of Hugh Sebag Montefiore's Somme Into the Breach, published by Kenjin, is out now, priced £9.99, as is the update 75th anniversary paperback edition of his Enigma, The Battle for the Code, with new material published by Orion's Weidenfeld and Nicholson, priced £10.99. A Nurse at the Front, edited by Ruth Cohen, is published by Simon & Schuster, price £7.99.
A little bit now about Edith. Edith's caring time on the island. Edith Appleton originally moved to the Isle of Wight in 1923 when she was 45, thinking it would be a good place for her and Lil, one of her older sisters, to look after Eliza, their elderly mother. They bought Buddlebrook in Bryston, which was originally a small terrace of little cottages joined together, but which was eventually extended to include a new house built in front of the terrace. Had a large garden where the sisters grew vegetables and kept chickens. Edith's passion after she retired from nursing. One reason for the extension of Buddlebrook was after Eliza Appleton died, Edith's older brother Fred, a retired vicar, joined Edith and Lil, a retired midwife, following his wife's death in 1940, along with Minnie, another of Edith's sisters, who had devoted her life to looking after members of the very large family. Edith had 10 siblings. Fred became the part-time vicar of nearby Brook and Mottiston. Sadly, none of the occupants had children, although they loved being visited by nephews and nieces. By this time, Edith, who had married Lieutenant Commander John Ledger in 1926, had also lost her partner. She lived on in Buddlebrook until her death in 1958. Fred ended his days in the lodge, a nearby retirement home, until his death in 1953. Minnie had died in 1947.
And here are some of the things that are happening on the island. What's on, in fact? Shanklin Theatre. In December, on Friday the 1st, that's today, Footsteps putting on the Glitz. And again on Saturday the 2nd, Footsteps putting on the Glitz. And then on Sunday the 10th, there's the Theatre Train, Beauty and the Beast. Monday the 11th, first act present The Snow Queen, and again on Tuesday the 12th. Spotlight Isle of Wight Limited present Dick Whittington on Saturday the 23rd, 24th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th and the 31st. And again in January on Monday the 1st, Tuesday the 2nd and Wednesday the 3rd. Those at the Shanklin Theatre,
And this is music. Richard Studd and the Sinfonietta will be at All Saints Church Ryde, 7 p.m, Friday the 8th of December. Mozart Symphony No. 1, K16, Mozart Clarinet Concerto, K622. Joan Luna will be the soloist, Vaughan Williams the Lark ascending. Schubert Symphony No. 5. The director and violinist will be Richard Studd. The prices range from £7 to £24. You can ring 294816 for tickets, or you can book online.
And here's some more. The festival beats the winter blues. The 21st Bryston Christmas Tree Festival, which has raised more than £100,000 for local and national charities, takes place in venues across the West Wight between Thursday and Sunday, December the 10th. More than 300 decorated themed trees will be on display at 7 places over the weekend between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m, before being moved to just 3 venues where they will be on show until December the 31st. The festival organiser, Chris Goodman, said, "For those who have been to this special festival, they already know how fantastic it is because they return year after year. Anybody who hasn't should give themselves a treat and banish those winter blues with the most joyful event imaginable. There is fun for all the family and it's all free." The main focus of events is in Bryston at St Mary the Virgin Church, the Methodist Church, Wilberforce Hall, the Three Bishops Pub and the Reading Rooms and Social Club. There will also be trees at Motterston Church and the Isle of Wight Pearl. In addition, there will be children's trees in Bryston Community Library, and next Saturday and Sunday, December the 9th and 10th, Santa will be appearing in a winter wonderland at the Exchange in New Road. And over the weekend, there will be concerts, carol singing, handbell ringing, craft fairs, mini market, lace-making demonstrations, cake and biscuit raffles. And this year there will be the return of the Nativity pageant with a cast drawn from residents performed through the village in the open air. Daily refreshments will be available with soup lunches on the Saturday and a hog roach on the Sunday. There's also a free glass of mulled wine in the Reading Rooms and the Social Club while stocks last. A free park and ride will operate from the Isle of Wight Pearl and Bryston Holiday Centre on the Military Road into Bryston Village, with a further free shuttle service to Mottistone and back. And all donations will go to charity. See programmes for full details or look up 2017 Bryston Tree Festival online.
And this is about a talk at Carisbrooke Castle Museum on Tuesday from 2 to 4. The heading is Ireland's Transport Heritage. Old cars are more than transports of delights. They are part of social history, marking the development of technology through the decades. Transport historian and author of 2 books based on vehicles bearing the DL registration, Mark Chesil, will give an illustrated talk about their fascinating history from 1896 to 1964. The talk will be held at Carisbrooke Castle Museum on Tuesday from 2 to 4. Focus of the presentation will be a wide variety of cars, motorcycles, buses, coaches, lorries and emergency vehicles, registered by the former Isle of Wight County Council and were issued with distinctive DL number plates. The talk will include details of several island vehicle manufacturers in this period, including the Liquid Fuel Engineering Company, Pollard and Sons, Gilbert Campling Limited's ABC Scooter Motor, Harry Margam and Sons Limited and Frank Cheverton Limited. There will be an opportunity for a question and answer discussion. Mark has just published his third book about island transport with Chine Publishing. Signed copies of DL, The Classic Years, will be available after the talk.
And what the dickens? It's Panto time again. Origins Theatre is staging everyone's favourite Christmas story at K-Arts on Thursday and next Friday, December the 7th and 8th. But A Kind of Christmas Carol is like no other version of the classic tale. For one thing, Charles Dickens himself is in it, and he's decided it's high time his other favourite characters make an appearance, including Miss Havisham and Fagin. Writer and director Kevin Wilson said, "It's very silly indeed, a panto and a farce rolled into one, and it's going to be great fun for the whole family." The book online at keyarts.org. And A Kind of Christmas Carol on the Origins Theatre Company is at Keyarts on the 7th and 8th of December. And it says here, don't miss this Christmas favourite, retold with love and laughter by Origins Theatre Company. Christmas menu served from 5:30pm. If you like food, please phone and book a table on 01983 822 490. And to get tickets, please visit keyarts.org or call 01983 822 490. So that's a panto.
And this is headed, See the Isle of Wight's Christmas Lights. Southern Vectis will take passengers on a tour of the Isle of Wight's Christmas lights once again. Open-top buses will provide views of the island's best illuminations. This year will feature a special stop in Brading with lots of tasty treats. There will also be goodie bags and giveaways. Southern Vectis General Manager Richard Tildesley said, "We're one of the only Christmas lights bus tours in the UK and we're now in our 17th year. This time around we're offering a very special stop at Rectory Mansion in Brading for hot drinks and mince pies, as well as carols and Christmas songs sung by local choirs. The Christmas Lights Tour begins on Monday, December the 11th and operates from Newport bus station on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays and Saturdays, and from Ryde bus station on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays, up until and including Saturday, December the 23rd. It lasts around 3 hours, including the stop over in Brading. Tickets are available from Newport and Ryde travel shops or by calling 0330 0539 182. It costs £13 per adult and £6.50 per child, that is the under 19s. A family ticket for 5 people costs £33. There is a discount for key card holders who provide their card number.
And that's all we have now. So perhaps we'd like to say to you, have a happy Christmas.
Yes, and it's goodbye from Pauline.
And both me, Peter.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Good evening. Tonight, the hallucinations which can blight the lives of many visually impaired people. But why do they go undiagnosed and unexplained? And the latest smartphone app called Seeing AI, which is exciting some and alarming and puzzling others.
I really don't know what an app is. And an AI for me, growing up in the country, is artificial insemination for dairy herds. That's where I start from.
Well, we'll be finding out more about what it really does later in the programme. But first, it's reasonable to think that the main problem for people losing their sight is what they can't see. But for a surprising number, it can be more a question of what they do see, but which isn't really there at all. Many report seeing frightening images, which turn out to be hallucinations. The problem is they often go unexplained, either because doctors don't know about them either, or because patients are too scared to mention them. And yet this phenomenon has been known about since the 18th century. It's got a name, Charles Bonnet syndrome, after the Frenchman who first identified it. Well, we've often mentioned it here on In Touch. This is what Ruth and first Margaret described to us on a previous programme.
I started to see these hallucinations, but I didn't want to tell anybody about them because they were rather scary, and I thought people will think that there's something wrong with my mind because nobody sees things like that.
And what were they?
The first thing I actually experienced was blackberries in all the bushes. Everywhere I went, there was blackberries on the bushes as I looked. The other thing that does puzzle me a lot, my partner, if I'm looking across the room, his head goes down on his lap.
We're very lucky at the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind. We had a talk recently from one of the island's optometrists, and he mentioned Charles Bonnet syndrome to people. And out of the 20 in the room, every single one had had some experience of it.
Really?
And I think 4 or 5 of them had not mentioned it to anybody before. So it's incredibly common. I run the macular support group on the Isle of Wight, and I always mention it to new members. Without fail, they've all had some experience of seeing something that isn't there, and 9 times out of 10 they haven't said anything. It's often age-related eye conditions, so I think they often think there's maybe something else going on in the background, so therefore they don't speak out and worry themselves unnecessarily a lot of the time.
And indeed, as Margaret made clear, the key difference for her came when she knew what she was actually dealing with. And that's what bothers journalist Judith Potts. Judith came into the studio to tell me about her late mother Esme's experience.
Well, Mum, Esme, was in her early 90s. She was incredibly independent, lived on her own. Despite her failing eyesight, she completed the Telegraph cryptic crossword every day, which is more than I can do, and enjoyed all her friends. That is until one day when I was leaving her flat and she suddenly said, "I do wish these people would get off my sofa. They go if I tap them on the shoulders." Well, I didn't know what to say. I said, "But there's nobody on your sofa." And she said, "Well, it's not just that. They haven't got any faces, so that's rather horrible. And there's this other creature." And she described like a gargoyle creature.
Because you mentioned that in a way, quite matter-of-factly, but I guess, how was she actually feeling about it?
Well, I think this had been going on, I suspect, for some months. And I think she hadn't told me. And I think she suddenly could bear it no longer. So she was getting very upset. And I thought, well, this must be some form of mental illness, possibly dementia with her age. But she didn't seem to have any problems with her mind, just that she was seeing these things. She said, "I'm pretty sure they're not really there, but I just wish they would go away because they are interrupting my life."
Having talked to her about it, did you try to get her treatment?
I did. I rang her ophthalmologist, who infuriatingly refused to discuss it with me. So I went to the GP. She'd never heard of it. And then I went to the optician, who had also never heard of it. So then, of course, I did what we're always told not to do. I went onto the internet and found Dr. Dominic Fitch, who is at King's London, and he is still the only globally acknowledged expert in Charles Bonnet syndrome.
And he has indeed been on this programme. But this is the mysterious thing about this, Judith, which I don't quite understand, which is, we've talked about it. Clearly the Macular Society is trying to draw attention to it. You're trying to draw attention to it. Why don't people know? Particularly, why don't ophthalmologists know?
I think it's because there is nothing that can be done. So there is no doctor to whom they can refer. And also, it doesn't fall into a particular medical category. So even if there was someone, they don't know who to refer.
But of course there is something that can be done, because people can be told what it is, and your mum could have been told.
She could.
Straight away.
Absolutely. And forewarned is forearmed. And now the Royal College is going to possibly insist is too strong a word, but they are certainly going to ensure that most of their members will warn their patients. I think also some of the doctors say to me, "Well, I don't want to tell them because if it doesn't happen, they'll be worrying about it." But I said, but I think it's just better if the warning is there. If it doesn't happen, that's absolutely marvellous. And of course, it doesn't to everybody.
But you're trying to do more about it, aren't they? Because you've started Esme's Umbrella,
I have.
named after your mother. What's it for and what's that going to do?
Well, after she died, I thought I really have to do something about this. She had struggled with this condition. We didn't know what to do. So I launched an awareness campaign. And over the last 2 years, I have been everywhere, really, to speak to all sorts of different members of the medical profession.
But in the meantime, clearly what's really needed is some help for people when they need it. Because
Yes.
you said to me, I think, when we at one point, this ruined the end of your mother's life.
Yes, it did. It did. The last few years of her life, she was simply tormented by the hallucinations. And I think they were getting worse. It was just all too much for her. And people with severe Charles Bonnet syndrome who call my helpline or who email me or members of their family who do on their behalf, they say, I cannot go on. This is like living in hell. And the description of the hallucinations that some people have to live with are totally horrific. Fire, rushing water, the whole room sometimes changes. One lady told me she woke up and she thought her bed was on fire. And because the hallucinations come directly from the brain, they are sharp and clear as opposed to the person's normal sight.
Judith Potts. And I hope hearing about those experiences may have reassured people going through this that there is a rational explanation for it and there are things that can be done. There are more details about Charles Bonnet syndrome and Esme's Umbrella on our website. There's also some more potential good news for visually impaired people frustrated by that perennial problem of identifying things that really are there. What's on the table in front of me? What's in the bland tin on my kitchen shelves? Or when I'm trying to identify items out shopping. But there is a new app, isn't there always? It's called Seeing AI, and although there are a lot of these popping up on smartphones, this one really is causing quite a stir. One of those people who's using it and who has greeted it with enthusiasm is our BBC Washington correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue.
I've been using the Seeing AI app for a few months now and I find it incredibly useful. It kind of draws together a whole bunch of functions that other apps do and does some more as well. So, for example, the product category where it tries to read barcodes. I use it a lot, obviously, for reading tins and packets out of the kitchen cupboards. And the great thing about it is that it doesn't just tell you what they are. It often tells you instructions, so cooking instructions or serving instructions. And obviously that depends on the database of barcodes, but here in the US it does work really well. And it's very rare that I pick a product up from the cupboard and it can't read it. It also has an audio guide which tells you whether you're pointing it properly at the barcode itself. It's really very good. I also use the short text setting, and the thing I really like about this is that you don't have to take a picture. You don't have to press a button to take a picture and then get the app to interpret the text, which you have to do with some other apps. You simply point it at the thing you're trying to read. And I've used this countless times, particularly in hotel rooms when you're trying to work out which side of that card is please clean my room and which side is please do not disturb. And that works really well. That's a sort of a use case that I've used dozens and dozens of times. And then, of course, with Christmas coming up, there's a really fun part to this app, which is the person setting. So you can point it at a person, it tries to describe them to you. And the really cool thing is that it tries to guess their age at times as well, which can be a double-edged sword. All in all, I think it's a really worthwhile thing to get and to try. It's free. There's no downside in that sense. And I've used it a great deal over the last few months.
So, Gary O'Donoghue, obviously a bit of a fan, but even if you're confident with the technology, as Gary clearly is, where does this fit in with the other equipment that's around doing similar kinds of things? Well, who better to ask than Jackie Brown, who's been this weekend at a get-together of the British Computer Association of the Blind. Indeed, as from yesterday, she's its new chair. So congratulations for that, Jackie.
Thank you.
Now, how significant is this latest app, do you think?
It seems to be very popular, Peter, among lots of techie users who would already be using smartphones anyway. It's only available in the App Store on iOS. At the moment, it's not available for Android users. But those who are using it are really enjoying it. I like the OCR part of it.
That's the optical character recognition, yeah?
That's right. My husband and I both received talking books from RNIB. And if you want to identify whose book belongs to who, it's really good at just pointing that app at the CD. I've had more success really quickly on the trot with that than I have using, a KNFB reader, which I've also got on my phone. So that's interesting.
How does it compare with some of the others? I mean, things that we've featured on the programme before, which are ways of identifying objects, for example, or the colours of things. Tap, tap, see, be my eyes. How does it compare with them?
People seem to be really liking it. They think it's good value to have all those things in one app. Then there are others who say that they just can't get aspects of it working. So it is very subjective in the sense that, there are lots of other apps out there that maybe do a good or better job. So it really depends on what you want from an app and what you want it to do. But there are also people out there who can't use smartphones, don't want to use them, just find touchscreens really difficult and feel that, they're very, very tied to their phone if they're going to go down that road.
What does this mean in financial terms? Because as I understand it, Seeing AI is free at the moment, isn't it? It's a free app, and so are some of the others. Does that mean that this is the end of people spending hundreds or in some cases even thousands on, freestanding readers and that kind of thing?
In a way, it is going to make the job of selling those kind of devices with 4 figures more difficult. But the other side of the coin is that people who need physical buttons, who prefer standalone equipment, they're the ones that are going to be left behind if this kind of material isn't produced in solid form, if you like. If it's just going to all be confined to apps, then they're the people that are going to be left behind, and that is the concern. But I think the days of spending thousands of pounds, if you like, on dedicated barcode scanners and reading machines, I think that we are working towards much more cheap apps and stuff like that.
Jackie Brown, thank you very much indeed. Well, listening to that from our BBC Cornwall studio in Truro was retired social worker Richard Pryor. We've asked Richard to listen to this because he'd already got in touch with us with some concerns about the gap that he felt was widening between people who were sailing ahead with this kind of technology and those who he thought were being left behind and not offered the support they might need to take advantage of it. Richard, just explain your concerns.
I totally agree with what Jackie was saying later on in the interview, because that's the first person I've actually heard acknowledge that there are an awful lot of us, I don't know percentage, but an awful lot of us who actually don't know the first thing about technology. And for example, I really don't know what an app is. And an AI for me, growing up in the country, is artificial insemination for dairy herds. So that's where I start from. And it is quite frightening. When I was working, the most important bits of equipment for blind people that were more interested in anything were the talking books, the wires for the blind, and talking watches.
But of course, Richard, because time moves on, there's progress, things happen, and because somebody can't use a piece of equipment, that's no reason to stop those who are benefiting from it and who are good at it.
No, that's right. My concern is that we're going backwards. I worked for 30 odd years and I received fabulous support. I had a wonderful career. I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it, and I'm still very happy about the way things are going. But when you look back at the support that young people have got nowadays and the support that I had, there's absolutely no comparison.
Now, you're not talking about technology there, you've widened it out. So, and what kind of areas of support did you get that you think that people aren't getting now?
OK, I lost my sight over about 3 days, went completely. Now, the first person I had was a technical officer for the blind. She came in. Then I had a blind persons resettlement officer, specialist officer from the job centre. Then I was sent off to Manor House, Torquay for 12 weeks, where I had 6 lessons a week in mobility, apart from anything else. They suggested a job for me that I would never have thought of in a million years. Came away from there, trained up with a guide dog. The guide dogs were great in those days. They had their own centres until they decided then close them down, which is the biggest mistake they've ever made.
Well, in a few weeks' time, we'll have guide dogs on. They can talk about some of those things.
But going for employment, the first job I applied for, which was back in the 70s, they wrote back and said, I'm sorry, you can't drive. So I wrote back and said, I can drive, I just can't steer, at which point I got an interview. But the second job I went for, which was down here in Cornwall, which was 83, before I actually came for interview, the RNIB advisor had been here. The blind persons resettlement officer had been to talk to my employees, and by the time I came for interview, they weren't interested in how I would record things, how I'd get around or anything, because they got all that explained to them, and all I had to do was explain what I was doing in terms of social work.
And you're saying that wouldn't happen now?
No, it doesn't happen now. You know, I've watched several young people try to get employment, and it's appalling. A lot of the software companies use these days are not accessible using the specialist software. I mean, I use Dolphin, which is great, but you know, you can't get at it. You can't get a lot of these software programs that are running.
But is that because the support isn't there, or is it because of the nature of the employment market now?
No, I think it's the support's not there. You know, we've got, I mean, you've heard Jackie talking about all these fancy gadgets and things like that. They sound really great. I'd like some of those, but I do need somebody to show me how to use them.
Richard Pryor. So is there a widening information gap amongst blind and partially sighted people? And if there is, how should we be tackling it? You can call our action line on 0800 044 044 for 24 hours after tonight's programme. You can email us at intouch@bbc.co.uk or click on Contact Us on our website, where you can find out more information about Seeing AI and Charles Bonnet syndrome. And you can also download our programme from there. Next week will be Christmas shopping on air. So do let us have your suggestions. We want to know examples of the best and the worst presents you've ever received. From me, Peter Wight, producer Cheryl Gabriel and the team. Goodbye.